Hello, my name is Jason. Welcome to assignment number 3 for the Human Computer Interaction course at Athabasca University. This is where I've actually implemented my system and given it a heuristic evaluation. So let's take a look. The purpose of my project was basically to develop a user interface for a game console, which I made up a fictional company called the Amazing Game Console. So this is like an Xbox or a PS4 or whatever you think of in the house that acts as an entertainment device. So there's basically a console, and then you input your commands and control it through a controller. So the purpose was to create an interface that will allow the users to easily and quickly access like the main features of the disk of the console. So there's different media types that the console can play. Those are games, movies, television, music, and third-party apps that can be accessed. Though some of the games and movies, they come on discs, but they can also be purchased digitally. So I want all those functions to be quickly and easily accessible. So in assignment 1, there were some main tasks. So the scope of my project was basically to be able to accomplish those tasks with a minimum amount of effort. So the tasks were to play a game disc, which is basically put the game in and start playing. Purchasing a digital game, so like going to an online store and trying to buy and download your game. Watching a movie from a third-party app, so finding the Netflix app and going into it and then trying to watch your movie from their interface. And then playing a purchase game. So in task number 2 is buying the game. So how would you find that game and try and play it from the system? And then the last one is playing a movie disc. Should that be any different from playing a game disc, really, right? So I didn't get into any advanced features of the UI because they were basically unnecessary. I added a minimal search functionality. Basically, whatever you search for comes up as the first result, and I didn't do any kind of spelling or checking or anything. I don't have a database in here. It just matches the string. And also there's no error checking. So like, for example, when you're paying at the online store, there's no checking of the credit card number for the format or anything like that. All it checks is to make sure there's no blank spaces right now, just so I could provide that a little more functionality. Anyway, moving on. So the rationale behind this design, like I mentioned before, was to make it easy to get to the main task. So the main tasks are playing discs and media, buying media, and using the app. So I want those all to be easily and quickly available. And then, as I mentioned, this is a console, so their input is not like a keyboard and mouse. Keyboard and mouse is typical computer input, which is many people are familiar with. Or even on a phone, you get to tap and there's still a keyboard there. But with the controller, you're very limited. You can't just touch anywhere. You have a directional pad and a few buttons. So this is a very limited input. So you kind of have to adapt how the user interface works to that. So I felt that making a lot of shortcuts for difficult or complicated commands would be necessary. And then also I wanted to keep things consistent, of course, across the whole thing. So the design basically comes down to making a bunch of screens that the user can navigate through it as if they're a menu. And so I want each level of the menu to look and feel very similar, also with a minimal amount of functionality. And then the input across those screens should be familiar to the user. So like, for example, the directional pad is always moving your selection around. It doesn't do anything else in a different screen kind of thing. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. The main task of the interface, as I discussed, is to play disc-based media. So those are games, Blu-rays, CDs, music, and movies. Purchasing content from the store and playing digital media. Those are basically dealing with digital media. So again, same type of digital media, just in the digital form, but you should also be able to search and find that content and select it. And then when you purchase it, of course, you're going to have to enter purchase details. So it should be able to do that also. And then connecting to third-party apps like Netflix and Hulu. They have their own interface, but the idea is that these companies would develop their own interface for their own apps and then make those apps available on the system, much like on your phone. if you have the Netflix app or some type of reader app like Amazon Kindle, you go open the app from the Android or iPhone interface, and then you go into the user interface of the app. So that's kind of the thing I'm thinking of here. All right, so when I developed the first prototypes in an assignment 1, I basically determined the main task and used that to create the scope, and then developed a menu hierarchy just on a piece of paper, trying to think of what would be the easiest way, and basically some very crude drawings of just like the screen, and thinking of like placement of objects on it and how big they would be kind of in reference to the screen size. And then I photoshopped those ideas into something a little more formal, which I presented in assignment 1. And then I also determined what inputs would be available from the controller. So as you can see in the image to the right, there is like a little controller and those are the inputs I used. I made up this little controller myself, so I just assumed that that's what would be available. Okay. So when I did the walkthrough of the tasks, I basically just took the tasks from assignment 1 and followed the descriptions that I made there. So there's 5 different users with varying levels of abilities and familiarity with the console. And I started from the powered off state, and then tried to basically complete all the goals that they had. So playing and buying media. Okay, so what did I use to make this interface? I started with Visual Studio Community 2015, which I obtained from the DreamSpark program from Athabasca there, so that was pretty handy. And then I used C++, mainly because it also comes with that doesn't come with, but I'm allowed to use the Allegro game library, which I used in another course at Athabasca. So C++ and Allegro I'm familiar with, and I've used C++ in other courses as well. So it was easier to develop this way a little bit. And then, of course, I used Photoshop, like I mentioned earlier, to do the screens and for the low fidelity prototypes, but also for the higher ones, because basically the menu system, as I mentioned, is just a navigation through a series of screens. So why don't I take you through basically what's going on here. So here are just some shots of my user interface, and I'll use them to describe the walkthrough of each kind of task to you. So the first one was to play the game disc. So why don't we go back and I'll show you the main screen from power off. So if you can see here on the upper left hand corner, when it's powered off, the little screen, interface screen to the left will be blank, as like your TV would be. And then when you turn it on, you can see there's off to the right the inputs that the user can use. So I had to simulate these obviously with a mouse input, but you just move the mouse around to click the various buttons that you would be manually pushing with your finger, when you actually have the physical device. So you can see there's the controller on the bottom that I showed, and then the console. It has 2 buttons, like a power on and an eject, and you can see how the tray for the console is ejected there in the picture, but it will go back in. And then on top there are 2 basically discs. So you can click on one if the tray is open, and it will put it in the system, and then you can use it to play. So that's what we had to do in the first case. So this was a person who's familiar with the game. They want to play their favorite game. So basically turn on the console, as you can see, and use the tray, put the game in, and close the console. I also made a shortcut here, so if this user is familiar with using the system, the Y button on the controller will close the tray without having to push the button on the console, to make it a little more convenient. But basically put in the game and then choose the menu option play disc, so it'll play whatever's in the system, no matter what type of disc it is. And in this case it's a game, so it'll recognize it as a game. And then the screen right below, you can see, is the little game interface that I made, that what happens when you push it. So it doesn't actually play a game. I didn't develop a whole separate game. You can just basically quit back to the main menu again. So but that task is complete for now. So let's look at task number 2. Task number 2 is to purchase a digital game. So this is a much more involved task. So in this case, the person doesn't have a disc media to put in themselves. They have to decide where and how to find the game. So again, we'll start with that first screen in the upper left-hand corner. And as you can see in the menu on that screen, there's a online store right below Play Disc. So you can navigate to that using the controller and then pressing A to confirm your selection. So that will bring, if we move to the right, that will bring us to the next screen there, where you can select the type of media, so like a media select screen. So you can see games is the big one because this is a gaming console. And then the other menu options are available to the right for the different media formats. So in this case, you want to buy a game. The game is highlighted. You just press A to input, and then it will take you to the next screen to the right, which is a listing screen. So this would basically be a listing of the types of games available on the store. And you can see here, it's actually the movie screen, but in this case, it would be the game screen. It would be more detailed with store items and pictures. And to the right, there's a big area for displaying more information about the game. And then you can see above that, on the very top left, that covers the area, is a search bar. So if the person was looking for a particular game, they might want to search for it if it didn't show up in this immediate area. So that is on the next screen. If you go and press A on the search screen or search bar, you come up with this search screen on the top left here. So this is basically a keyboard input. You navigate through the different letters using the pad and then confirm your choice of letter with A button. And then I put some shortcuts here for backspace with X, and then entering the information with Y instead of having to navigate to those buttons. And then B is cancel. Actually, I should mention that B is cancel in basically every screen. It always moves you back one screen. So that's an example of the consistency I was talking about before. So once you've searched for something from that list screen, it will come up, obviously, like a normal search function. It will match the closest things it can. And then once you choose a game, you can go over, highlight it, select it, and it will take you to this middle screen here, which basically just gives more information about the game with some screenshots. And then you can choose, the only option available here is purchase, or if you push B, you can go back like I mentioned. If you decide to purchase, it will take you to this purchase information screen, which is the next one to the right. Fill in the different information with the same keyboard input, which can be a little bit cumbersome actually, but there's not really an intuitive way to do it with a controller because you don't have a keyboard available. So if you don't fill in all the pieces of information, I made it come up with this screen on the bottom left. You can see there's some red writing. It's a little hard to read in the slide here, but basically that red writing would show you which ones are missing. So I didn't actually implement that functionality in this case, but that's the idea here. So once you do fill in everything, it will give you this middle bottom screen, which says you're about to purchase this game. So again, because we're making a big purchase and spending money, we need to use the interface to make sure that the user knows that they are making an action that is going to cost them money, and it's a bigger action. We want to make sure that they really want to do it before moving on. Once they click A on that screen to move forward, they'll get the success screen, which basically just says, hi, it's downloading. And I didn't implement any other functionality after that. Once they've got the game, I consider that success. So let's move on again to task number 3, which is right here. This is watch a movie from an app. So in this case, I chose Netflix to be the app. So this person wants to watch a movie. How are they going to get there? What do they do? So they're going to start from the same power on screen again. Powering on is, easy enough. And then there's on-device media. Well, this isn't really on-device media, but maybe someone could think it would be. So I also put a menu or a menu option straight from the front screen for apps to quickly access those and to distinguish it from, say, media that the user has purchased. So if you navigate to the app and you press A, a listing screen will come up similar to the one that I showed you before on the right here, top right, and then it would be a list of apps instead this time. You choose the app, and then if you move down there, the bottom right will show you an example of the interface that might come up for this specific app. So in this case, Netflix then the person can play the movie from their interface. So with that task complete, we'll move on to the next one, which is task number 4. In this case, we have playing a purchase game from the console. So task number 2 is to purchase the game. Now that we have that game on our console, we'll say it's been downloaded. How are we going to play it? So again, starting from the power on screen in the top left corner here, we choose this time on device media. So now that we've purchased it, it's on our device, or it should be, right? So we'll go here. We want to play games. So the media select screen, we'll choose the games from the middle. And then again, another listing screen. We can either search, or if our game appears, we can choose it from the selection area. And basically once we select it, it goes back to the same game screen that you see in the lower left. That would be the same as if we put the disc in physically. Okay, so another kind of consistency right there. You start the game and find your game, and then it just starts up in a similar fashion. Okay, and that's one more task left. So our final task is to play a movie from a disc. So our first task was to play a game from a disc. This one should be playing a movie from a disc. It really shouldn't differ that much, and well, it doesn't. So again, we start from the upper left-hand corner, power on the screen. We want to play the disc. This time we can eject it however we want and put the movie disc in this time. Close it, play disc, and it will go to this bottom middle movie screen here. I didn't actually implement any movie playing functionality. I just simulated the controls, and then the user can push B to go back from the movie, or stop or play the movie. But it's really just a static image. Once they got to the point of actually getting the disc in and getting to that play function, I considered the task complete. So that's it. Those are all the tasks complete, and I feel like the interface works well. It does have its issues, but I've discussed that in the paper that I've presented also. So I hope you have an understanding of this, and thanks very much for watching. Bye.